Hello and welcome to Kody and Korbin have a podcast show where two former roommates
And they were roommates.
talk about a new movie every week. This week on the show, we're talking about Stalker. As always, I'm your host, Corbin's Vocal, and I'm joined by my co-host, Kody Webb. Kody, how are we doing today?
Doing great. Very, very excited to be back, capping it up. You know, I feel like there's an obvious Stalker joke here to make, but I'm going to pass on it. But yeah, I'm excited to be back, man. Been a while since we recorded. But how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Yeah, we got to give a little bit of an explanation to the people. You know, I was moving, starting a new job, also cracked my laptop screen, which caused some delays in the recording process. But hey, we're back. Just a couple episodes left of season 3. Pretty crazy. Gonna move on to season 4 soon. Also, maybe, you know, new series coming in the next couple of weeks. So a lot to look out for. Now, this is an interesting episode, Kody, because it's actually the first film that we've done not spoken in English. 1979 Soviet Union film, a little Russian action from Tarkovsky, Stalker. But the reason we're doing it is because it's, you know, our punishment episode from when we lost our Battle of the Podcast trivia. So unfortunately, we really didn't have much say. We're probably not going to get many listens, but I think we're going to have a great conversation about this film. And there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, going back to that loss, whose fault do you think that was? I would probably lean a little bit blame your way. But
I think it's because you ruined me on the Leo category. I think it's your fault. I would have been perfect there.
Yeah, that is tough. But you know, I mean, it is a punishment, but like it's still a movie, so it is what it is. We'll get into it a lot more. But yeah, shout out to our boys from the Rough Cut Retrospective picking an, you know, absolute Soviet classic. Big ups to them. But yeah, other than that, not too sure about this movie, but yeah.
Speaking of our friends from the Rough Cut Retrospective, they do have they've shared a little message with us. So I'm going to play that now, and let's talk why they picked this movie.
Why? Anyways, because we're so smart, Carter, why did we pick this episode? Or this? Oh God, let's just restart all of this. This is a nightmare. Okay, Korbin,
it's going well.
Don't use any of this.
Korbin, cut that.
Jesus Christ.
That's that.
Oh my God, I'm so flustered.
No, it was good.
Because Corbin's so cute.
Cute.
Okay.
And Cody's there.
Abby texted me and said, cut that. All right. Hello, Kody and Korbin from Kody and Korbin Have a Podcast. It's us, your best friends and rivals, enemies, lovers, friends.
Hi.
Hello, it's Jackson and Carter from the Rough Cut Retrospective, and we are here to bring you the newest episode of Kody and Korbin Have a Podcast. We are talking about Stalker. Well, not us. They are, because we beat them in trivia. Carter, explain.
Oh, wow. You see, Jackson and the listeners, we beat them in trivia because we're smart and more intelligent about most things, I guess. And we decided to pick a movie that would challenge the minds of maybe the less inferior over at Kody and Korbin Have a Podcast. So today they're talking about a Russian classic from 1979, Stalker. We did it, Kobe.
Kobe?
Shut!
Like the cheese?
Oh, I'm stopping this. Bye.
All right. Well,
is Kobe a cheese? I don't think Kobe's a cheese. I think it's a beef, isn't it?
Kobe beef, Colby cheese.
Colby.
They seem to be struggling a little bit. They had just done a whole episode. Shout out to those boys. 10,000 likes, and maybe we'll release the full cut of that.
Only 10K? Well, we'll hit that easily.
Yeah, true. All right. Well, that's why they picked the movie. Let's throw it over to our initial thoughts, though, Kody.
Good morning, Vietnam!
To which I have many. So,
Yeah.
First things first, you know, this movie was given to us as a task, and it felt a little homeworky. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, not even halfway, about, you know, half hour out of the movie, I was like, this is boring as shit. And I was like, but I have to watch it. I literally have to watch this entire thing. So yeah, I did get that feeling a lot as well.
Yeah. As someone who went to film school, took a lot of foreign cinema classes, I never took a Russian film class, but I've kind of been in that where it's like you got to watch this 2-hour movie that, like, yeah, it's really good and there's some great cinematography, but at the end of the day, like, it's long as hell and it kind of drones on and there's not really, any humor or anything to kind of keep you interested. But there's some cool stuff to talk about this movie. Maybe we get into the plot a little bit. This is interesting because, we just did Annihilation last week.
Yeah.
And this movie, a lot of people say Annihilation is essentially a ripoff or maybe an amalgamation of this film and another film. I see the similarities in just essentially you've got these people going into an alien zone, quote unquote.
Yeah.
What do you think about the similarities between these two movies?
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty much where it ends. I'd say it's more of like a remake of this movie, Annihilation, just in the sense that the beginning is very similar. I think, like, obviously it's not the exact same plot, but there's people who want to get into this place. They don't know what's really inside of it. It's a big mystery, blah blah blah. But the difference really for this movie is like they control their surroundings. It seems like, so whatever their thoughts, are going on in there, it kind of just exudes out into the environment. If I'm being completely honest, I didn't understand much of this movie, and I don't care to understand much of this movie. Could have gone in, read the, Wikipedia page or some shit. I'm freeballing out here. I watched the movie. It is what it is. Like, I saw all the scenes. I knew what was going on.
I did not read all the dialogue.
Yeah.
I won't lie to you.
I'm sure there's like a lot more of other stuff because even like in the synopsis of the movie on HBO Max.
Well, that's a little. I wanted to talk about
What?
that.
Yeah,
The synopsis
It said
says.
something about like a mutant, thinker
Yeah,
or some shit.
He's referred. This is what it says: a mental mutant
Yeah, that's what it
leads
was.
pilgrims to a mysterious room where dreams come true, which is
The
an
ending-
interesting way to describe it, but
Yeah, I
not.
don't know how he's a mental mutant. You get
Yeah,
that?
he has some visions and he's clearly connected
That's true.
to the zone in some sort of way, but I wouldn't necessarily have, without reading that from HBO Max, I would not make that connection that he's a mental mutant.
No,
I think that's just kind of a weird description that they have written there, to be honest.
Yeah. And if I'm being completely honest, I wiped the visions just out of my brain completely the minute they left the screen because it was just excruciating and very
Not a sepia guy.
not particularly. I have a lot of initial thoughts, so I'm just gonna rattle out the mouth here. For being completely honest.
Let's hear him.
Yeah, stop me if you want. But Tarkovsky, famous director, I guess. Not sure how, because this is an absolute shit show. This movie's in Russian. That's cool. Didn't know that going into it. Third, I thought it was in black and white for first half hour of the movie.
Well, and I'm
and then-
sure you're about to say this, but nobody talks in this movie until about 10 minutes and 20 seconds into it rolling on HBO Max.
Right.
For a minute there, did you think maybe they're never going to talk? Because that's kind of what I thought. I was like, are they ever going to speak?
You thought for a second it's a silent film from like the 40s or something?
Well, I knew it was from 79, but like, you
Yeah.
go 10 minutes before the first word of dialogue is spoken. That's
Yeah. I mean, like Wall-E, you go like a half hour. So, good cinema is good cinema. But and then the most obvious thing that anybody will ever say after watching this movie is, why are the shots so fucking long? I mean, it's ridiculous. Every fucking scene is a half hour just because they refuse to cut the camera. And it's these old men just walking around these sets as slow as humanly possible, and the camera just stays there. I don't understand it. I get the thought process behind it, but this movie's like almost 3 hours long, and it could probably be cut up to be like an hour and a half because not much happens. There's probably like, I don't know what, 5-6 sets in like the zone. There's not that many. They don't do anything. They don't even show like this grand room at the end. It's just another pit where they sit next to, this fucking pond. So I really don't understand like the set design and the thought process behind that. Because if you're gonna have a movie where the camera like lingers on for a long time, you would think you would want to have more interesting shots. Like the tunnel scene's kind of cool, the whole sand pit's kind of cool, but every other set is just like, metal gates in like a swampland or some shit. So that's pretty frustrating. But
I do want to talk about that a little bit. I
Oh,
will.
I've one more line. It's like this movie's like Dune, but it's on crack. Yeah, those long establishing shots. Shout out Dune. That does it well. This is fucking. I don't know what they're thinking, but yeah, that's
Shout
my
out Dune. Dune 2
Yeah.
filming now. I'm definitely going to talk more about kind of the way this was edited and shot and put together in some later categories. But yeah, I mean, it's agonizingly long takes, and it's very much for a reason. And you talk about at the end, they don't even show us, the room. Obviously, that would be difficult to kind of put that to camera, but there's a ton of moments throughout this entire movie where they're essentially looking into the camera, and it's like everything that they're seeing and experiencing is like behind the camera, and it's like directed towards you, and it's put with these extremely long shots where you're kind of just left there to like be stuck, and like it's supposed to make you, I guess, really like ponder the moment and think and imagine what's happening, but in the end it just ends up being pretty boring, admittedly.
Yeah. And
The dialogue
yeah, I was gonna say that.
is a lot. Again, it's in Russian, so we're reading a ton of it. But it's very dense. It's very written like theater, written like poetry. One of the characters is a writer, so you kind of expect that. But honestly, all the characters, it's almost, I don't want to give it the title of Shakespearean, but it's kind of that similar vibe where it's like what they're saying is just like, oh my God, you could say this in 5 words, but you're saying it in 20. But, Tarkovsky, his father was a poet. He seemed to have write a lot of poetic almost films. So it kind of makes sense. I do like the 3 perspectives that they kind of go with. Essentially, the 3 characters are kind of a stereotype or amalgamation of all, versions of that person. So the writer is kind of just like a very generic, like writer seeking inspiration. The scientist is almost a scientist for all mankind. And even the stalker is kind of your rough on the outskirts, former prisoner, type character. And I think pairing those 3 does work well, even though the dialogue often drones on for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, the characters, they are interesting at times. But first off, I mean, all my homies hate Tarkovsky. That's all I know, because this dialogue is shit. But I'm sure it's better in Russian, obviously. But yeah, it is also.
I do wonder
very, very long.
where the translation goes, how that hurts things, just like how direct of a translation it is.
That's true. But character-wise, I mean, for the most part, it kind of like bounces back and forth between like, I think, good character moments and then kind of like that's a questionable character moment.
I agree.
Specifically, like the Stalker character, I did like his intro a lot, and then it sort of feeds into these other 2 characters becoming, like more important to the story in a sense than him. But then he kind of just loses it and has like no control over the situation, which I thought was interesting, and I didn't see that coming. But I didn't love that for that character. I think for like the title character Stalker, I think he was probably the worst of the 3, which kind of sucks. Yeah, the writer was actually my favorite character by far. I thought his like long speech, like on the sand dune, I thought was actually pretty interesting. And I probably didn't say that too many times in this movie. So shout out the writer, but it is tough as well when you have a movie this long and you only have 3 characters basically to I mean, basically they're just like gossiping about their thoughts and emotions the entire time. Another thing I'm kind of confused on, is there like somebody like controlling the zone? Because we get like one specific scene where somebody going, oh, this is what's going to happen in here. They're going to, get really sad and they're going to feel like their careers they've been doing this entire life for no reason, sort of that stuff. So I'm kind of confused on what this zone is and what's going on there. But yeah, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is again where like the things with the similarities with Annihilation really play in, where it's like it's not distinctly explained exactly what's going on. In Annihilation, you at least have the moment, like the exposition at the start of the movie when she's like visiting the outside of the zone, where they're like, oh yeah, like it's been expanding. This one, you don't really get that before they go in, and then you kind of learn more. Essentially, you find out that 20 years ago, a meteor fell and hit this city. And then because of that, there was this zone established, and mysterious things happened there, supernatural extraterrestrial things. People were disappearing, and then obviously most importantly, this room appears where your secret, innermost, cherished desires are filled. Not even the desires you want, but the desires that are true to your heart. And then, of course, the military comes in, surrounds the zone, cordons it off. But then that just brings more people there, and which is where our Stalker character, of course, comes into the mix as kind of a guide into these zones, in a way symbolic of prisons a little bit, I think. I mean, when you look at the Stalker, he's a former prisoner. He looks like a prisoner. He kind of dresses like a prisoner. He's got the shaved head. And then obviously it's a little reminiscent of like Soviet gulags, while not necessarily like a direct metaphor for that. It's not hard to draw that line, I would say. There's obviously also influences of, the fear of nuclear war and nuclear radiation. And there was a nuclear accident that happened in Russia a few years prior to this movie that kind of inspired it. And then, 7 years after this came out, you have Chernobyl, which is a huge event. So I think it's a combination of a lot of things. And I can't say specifically like what the source in the movie. We talked about this in Annihilation. Is it like a coherent, intelligent being that's like doing this? Or is it like a hive mind that's there to, like, there's so many questions, and I think it's left up for you to decide. I think with this one, I'm less inclined to make my personal statement, because I really have no idea.
Yeah, I agree with that. I have no idea, if you can't tell my tone already from the podcast, here it is. But I have no idea. To be completely honest, I don't.
You don't care, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, as well. I mean, the whole prison thing. I think there's even a line in the beginning of the movie where he's talking to his wife, and she's like, "They're gonna throw you back in prison," and he's like, "Am I not already in prison?" So yeah, that's a good line, I think.
Yeah, and then there's obviously the connection that like for him, the zone is like really his home. It was his home.
Yeah,
and for a lot of people that are put into prisons, when they go back out into society, they struggle to kind of reassimilate with things. They almost long for that institutionalized life, which is quite unfortunate. So there's definitely something to be said about that.
Shawshank Redemption, check it out. But yeah, this movie, the zone, I think is interesting, but I really don't like what they do with it in this movie. Like I said,
well, there's no special effects shots in this film, or there's practically none.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't really need those, though. I mean, this is the golden age of film, evidently. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of issues with it, which I'm sure we'll get into. But I think just the construction of the movie as a whole is pretty poorly done. And initial thoughts wise, I'm probably gonna have pretty low rating for this, spoiler alert. But I'm excited to talk a little bit more about it, because there's a lot of like small details that is kind of like, what the fuck. But
before we move on, I got one last thing that we need to address.
Yeah.
The ending of this movie, Kody.
Yeah. I really like the ending.
What the fuck?
I think it's fucking sick.
Can you give me an explanation here?
You don't understand it? Okay, so the ending of the movie. Well, I mean, most of it I don't understand. I understand like the last scene.
That's what I'm talking about. His daughter.
Okay.
Monkey.
Yeah, Monkey. Great name, by the way. But so basically, the very last scene, his daughter, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Or his son? His
Yeah,
daughter.
his daughter.
Okay, his daughter. It's revealed that she has telekinetic powers, which I think is very cool. And basically, my explanation for this, I mean, again, this scene was just 5 minutes of his daughter moving cups. So there's no real explanation. It's just, telekinesis is there. My thought process is his wife was talking about, oh, she knew the risks. She knew that people, when they tend to reproduce, there's sometimes issues with the children. So I think, I mean, just based off that, I would just say, people who've been in the zone for a good amount of time, they do get, like, Annihilation-wise, mutated a little bit. When they do reproduce, they sort of possibly pass along that mutation to their kids. So she has lost the ability to walk, pretty much. Looks like she's got crutches. But she's gained the mental aspects, which maybe that brings in the whole mental mutant thing with him. Maybe there was some, like, hints throughout the movie that I didn't pick up on, where he is like mentally mutated a little bit just from being in the zone for this long. So I think that's cool. I think it's a great ending, honestly, just from a twist perspective as well. So I mean, plot wise, nothing particularly happens the entire movie other than that reveal at the end, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, that's my take on it. That could be way off.
I do think you're right, and it kind of makes me think of something that popped up in popular media recently, is like this discussion of like the effects of Agent Orange in Vietnam, and it was a partial plot point in the newest season of Stranger Things, and I think it's kind of something very similar. I don't really think this is a reference to that, but it's in the same vein of like, oh, this guy was affected by some sort of radiation or something in the zone, and then it was passed along to his daughter and his children, which, I mean, that stuff does happen and has happened. But there's a lot that is, you can take from this movie that's like, oh wow, this was made in 1979, not 10-20 years later when we knew about a lot of things that were going to happen. It's kind of crazy to think about.
That is true. It is, now you say it, it is kind of political in a sense, because I mean, during the war era, people were probably around like a lot of chemicals surrounded in,
and I mean,
military camps.
I mentioned Chernobyl, and like when that
funny.
happened, so many people were like, Tarkovsky had some real foresight to like make a whole movie about this, and now we have this thing. And funnily enough, stalkers were the terms that people use, like the people that would go into Chernobyl and like make trips there after the accident were stalkers. And I mean, that was like 7 years after this movie came out. It's really interesting. Speaking of Stalker, let's throw it over to roll credits.
Roll credits.
That was the first thing I was actually going to bring up. The title of this movie, Stalker, was partially based on a book. The story's similar to Annihilation, again, based on a book. The stories differ a lot. Really, the main idea of like there being a zone is just like the thing that was taken from the book.
Maybe they should have stuck to the book then. But
maybe the Stalker comes from the book. It's from the term to stalk, and then stalker they took, and that's what he's referred to in the book, and then they took it into the movie. And I mean, it was used in real life for the people who were going to Chernobyl, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, that's cool. It translated into real life. And they also say it pretty early on. I believe the first mention of it is when the writer is talking to that girl, and she's like, "Oh, are you a real life stalker?" It's probably like half hour in the movie. So cool shout out there. I like it whether it's early on or at the very end of the movie, sort of the opposite of Annihilation. But I think it's effective both ways if you throw in the title at the beginning and the end. So I like that. But yeah, other than that, I mean, opening and closing shot wise, just drawn out. So not too much interesting there. But another thing I did want to talk about is like this movie's pretty much split up into two parts, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of two standalone stories on its own as well, which I thought was cool. Just based off the fact that like both of them start off, well, I mean, for the first part, it takes a little bit, but they both have like voiceover of pretty long speeches from the stalker himself. So I thought that was kind of cool. And like, I definitely like part one a lot more than I like part two. I'm not gonna lie. I think
both parts shot by different cinematographers, actually.
Really? Well, maybe that makes sense.
I'll get into a little bit more of that a little bit later, but there's actually a reason why they ended up doing it in two parts.
That was probably my favorite part of the construction of the movie. So fair enough. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had for this category.
The only other thing I wanted to mention is the credits are not at the end of this movie. The credits happen at the beginning. And then when this movie ends, it basically just you see the final shot of the daughter and like one image appears and then it's over. So I guess that's just something interesting. I don't know if that's a Russian thing or maybe just kind of an older movie thing or just a decision they made, but you get all the credits, the names, the people who wrote it, all that stuff is to start out the movie, which is another, extended long sequence where nothing's happening, but
that's the entire movie though. So props. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even stick around to see if there were credits in the movie. That final shot faded away. I was backing out pretty quickly. So, that is cool though, I guess. I'd rather have the credits at the beginning than the end anyways. Show off the people who made the movie. I think they deserve their respect.
Yeah. It's like your whole movie's a post-credit scene. It's amazing.
Facts.
Let's move on to stupidest part.
You stupid.
I'm sure you have a ton to say here, Kody, so why don't you get us started?
I do have a couple pretty obvious ones, I think. First off, I mean, they kick us off with the first scene of, the stalker in his house, his wife and kid. Kind of just goes bananas. I wasn't really sure what was going on. And then you get his wife just, freaking out.
Throwing a tantrum.
I mean, this is physical acting in the 70s, I guess, because I mean, just absolutely insane. She, just no regard for her body on the floor, just sprawled out, bawling her eyes out. So, actually props for the performance on that, because I would not have done that in front of a camera. But that was definitely my first thing I wanted to shout out. Yeah.
Yeah, that was also in my list as well. And again, it's the agonizingly long takes thing where it's like, is this ever going to end? And it just keeps going. You're like, oh my God, this lady is going for it. And that's one of those, it's fun to watch like old movies and stuff and see stuff like this, because it's like when do you see that in a movie now? Like it's insane.
That's the worst argument I've ever heard for this movie. But I do have a couple other things. Another thing which I think is very funny, but I do have follow-up questions about it. The professor, he's so bored near the end of this movie. I think I feel like this was improvised, and he started just throwing like shit in the water, because this the scene I'm talking about is when they're all like sitting around the
When he's
water.
taking the bomb apart.
Yeah, he's taking the bomb apart, and he's like throwing stuff in the water. It's such a fucking long shot. I guarantee the actor is like, all right, I'm bored after like the 10th take. And he
At
just
one
started
point, he's
throwing
like
shit in the water.
unscrewing something. It's like, I don't even think that unscrews. He's just like rubbing it.
He's just throwing rocks in at the end too. Like he's that bored. So I thought that was pretty funny when the actors in your movie are like, all right, this scene's taking a little bit
Just
too long.
pacing around looking for something to do.
Yeah, but I did have some questions. So he did take the bomb apart, but my question was why? I don't really understand. Just because the stalker was so emotionally just like, what the hell are you doing? And they're like, oh, you shouldn't do this.
I think so his main fear, the reason
I was kind of lost in his story as well. There's too much going on.
Yeah, no, see, I actually really enjoyed that final moment with the professor. And so essentially what was going on, he wanted to destroy it because he believed that the room would be used for like ill will, right? People would come there to seek weapons and, whatever else. And he's a scientist. He cares about the earth. He cares about people, whatever. So he wants to blow it up so nobody ever uses it for bad. But then the important realization that they make is that you don't get to decide what your innermost desire is. When you show up at the room, it's only going to give you what you actually desire. So you can't go there and ask for, weapons or something. Like if that's not the truth of what you want, I guess is what he realizes.
No, I get what you're saying. I mean, I kind of like the idea of, what was the name? Porcupine. He's a great character.
Yeah. See, that's the story they use. Yeah.
Yeah. He wished for his brother to come back, but his real wish was to be, filthy rich. So I kind of like that. That is a cool thing about the room. But I guess once the professor learned that, he's like, oh, I guess I'm not going to do it for some reason. But wasn't it like the company, there's something with the place he worked had messed up and like helped create the zone, right? Or no?
So he was like an early scientist, and that had worked in that area and was supposed to, like, they had built the bomb and brought it there to blow it up. And then when they arrived, they like turned on him, or they made a different decision, and they decided.
And then he found the bomb. He called the guy. He's like, "Hey, I found the bomb where you hit it, and guess where I'm at."
Yeah. So because the whole reason he goes into the zone in reality is not to do scientific experience. It's to find this bomb and to destroy the room. The phone thing, I'm gonna say that's a stupid part.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of just like, oh, we're just gonna throw a phone in here and it works, and it's just so he can call up his scientist and gloat, and like that's what causes the other people to like discover his true intentions. Kind of, it's a moment they need there for the story to make sense. But I personally just think like just throwing a phone that magically works inside the zone is a little weird, unless you want to attribute that to some sort of work of the extraterrestrials. Then I don't know.
Yeah, you could. In my book, that's lazy as hell writing. That was definitely my next thing as well. Like it just like pops up out of nowhere, and then it's just like straight exposition that entire scene. So pretty lazy. Not surprising from Tarkovsky, but that was pretty much my main three. I feel like the dumb parts are very, very obvious, and it was probably obvious to Tarkovsky as well. It's probably why maybe the phone scene was like built up a little bit like that too, just to like show how dumb that is for a plot point. I mean, again, there's not a ton of plot in this movie, so it's hard to pick, a lot of other things. We could have gone scene by scene for this 3-hour epic, but yeah, that was my main stuff. So
you said it earlier, but I gotta give shouts to this movie's runtime. That's pretty fucking stupid that it's like 2 hours and 40 minutes. Not great.
I wonder how many pages the script is.
Definitely not 160, because typically a page per minute. I'm sure it's much shorter than that.
I bet it's less than half of that.
Yeah,
I bet it's not even close to half of that. Yeah.
And then I think the conclusion of the porcupine story and character works well when you kind of think about it. Like it's a cool, like you said, it's a cool moment. Oh, he would have wished for his brother, but in reality, he wanted, you know, money. He was greedy. Everything before that, like the lead up to it, like every time he would talk about Porcupine, I was like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't care about this Porcupine fella. Why is his name Porcupine?
He's the teacher and he tramples flowers for some reason. That's never explained, is it?
There's a lot. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
like he was a stalker that went into the zone and then he hung himself. So
yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, I would rather see that movie than whatever we got here. Porcupine, you know, teaching the young stalker the ropes, and then eventually, you know, he sacrifices his brother basically, and then he wishes for him back, but he gets money, and then he's so depressed he ends it. I think that's a more interesting story than whatever the hell we got here. So, yeah,
that's fair.
Porcupine, we need a prequel immediately. Tarkovsky, what are you doing?
we'll call him up from his grave. Let's move on to our favorite scene.
She is very gorgeous to me.
I have one, and I've already heard you say you don't like it, so I'll just go ahead and bring up. I think the shot of them sitting outside the room with the rain falling and the reflecting water, like right after he takes the bomb apart and he sits there, where it's like from the perspective of the room. I think that's a great shot. I personally like. I do agree it's really drawn out, like when he's throwing the bomb away, but like I like the moment of realization and the decision and the speech and the reason he chooses it and the whole Porcupine reveal. I think that altogether is a good conclusion to the movie. I would be okay if it just ended there.
Yeah.
I don't really think we necessarily need the stuff with his wife or the stuff, his daughter being a X-Men, but you know, whatever.
Yeah, it is a good shot. It's just ridiculously drawn out for me. And I do agree. I think the movie should have ended there 100%. But my best scene is the very, very ending with the telekinesis reveal. Funny enough, shouldn't even been in the movie because it's not necessary. But
make a different movie. Make that movie.
I agree. Oh, I think we should just like re-edit this movie to what we would want, because I think it wouldn't actually be terrible. It wouldn't be, you know.
There's something there you could update and modernize. I mean, obviously. Let's not say we could do it, but someone probably could better than us.
Oh, I could definitely do it.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, the reveal I think is very, very cool. And, you know, being a big X-Men guy myself, you know, you can't much get better than a superpower reveal at the end of the movie with which superpowers. So,
and then when Professor X shows up at the end, it's pretty cool too.
Yeah, I de-aged Professor X from Wolverine Origins, shows up at the end and he holds it from you know, breaking when she pushes it off the table.
Yeah.
But I do like that scene a lot. I was kind of like, holy shit, that's a cool moment. So fair enough. Took 3 hours to get something out of me, but it was worth the wait, I guess.
Did you watch this movie start to finish 2 hours, 40 minutes straight through?
I mean, I paused it a couple of times. I like had to go to the bathroom and was making some food a little bit in between. So all in all, it was probably like 3.5.
I think it might have taken me like 5-6 hours to finish this movie.
Yeah. I was kind of like that. I was like, I really want to pause it and like watch an episode of Seinfeld or something. I was like, no, I just need to get it over with. It's not going to change. It's going to be here still. So
yeah, that's fair. Let's go on to Let's Talk Filmmaking.
We are Full Sail University. We take dreams seriously.
Did you have anything you wanted to talk about here? I kind of have a lot of things I want to hit.
I don't really have anything. I just said, yeah, Tarkovsky's a good director, lol. That's it. But I'll throw it over to you, Teach.
What do you think about him being the Nolan of his time, Kody?
Well, I'll tell you what, Nolan has made some stinkers in the past year, so I guess it makes sense. But I mean, where is that in Tarkovsky's career? Is this like his peak stuff right here? Or?
He has better movies from what I understand.
I mean, I would fucking hope so. But
Solaris.
He's no Nolan.
There's a few different ones, but yeah.
Well, I'll have to check out maybe one of his other ones, give him another chance. But so I know he is an acclaimed director, but yeah, Solaris, I'll put that on my list.
And then also, you know, some people may say similar to his time contemporarily, like the other side of the coin with Stanley Kubrick. Also, let's talk about the Zack Snyder Justice League aspect ratio, Kody. Did you think that was, you know, really interesting that he was influenced by Zack Snyder? Or
that's true, and Snyder's taken influence from the best of all time, evidently. So that matches up perfectly with his repertoire. But yeah, the changing of colors, I thought, is an interesting thing to do, but I don't know if it was very effective, especially with the little like flash whatever, back, forward, just weird vision scenes I thought were kind of out of place and kind of took me out of the movie.
We love a 4:3 aspect ratio. We love sepia tones. We love this movie. Of course, we've talked about the agonizingly long takes. My trivia question will deal with how long these takes average. So get ready for that.
I'm excited for that.
But yeah, you can kind of see it as it's forcing you to stay in the moment. There's no escaping. You kind of have to like ponder with the characters as they walk around and whine and be glum. And you're forced to be stuck with that. So, it's something. And then this movie just in general had a very troubled production. So when they first started, they were using something called Kodak 5247, I believe, and like Alien was shot on, and a lot of popular films from like the 70s, 80s, and so on. But it hadn't really been used in the Soviet Union. So when they started to make this movie, they shot a bunch of it, and then they ended up going and sending it to the factory to be developed, and a mix of them not quite exposing things right on set and with the labs having never used this film stock, basically it was unusable, everything they had shot. So they shot a ton of the movie.
That's tough.
It was like super green and blue, and it just didn't work. Also, his wife really wanted to play the character, Tarkovsky wife, that is, wanted to play the character of the wife in the movie, and Tarkovsky kind of wanted her to do it, but the cinematographer like hated it and had this like other person he wanted. A bunch of people did not want his wife to do it. They did end up going with someone else. So shout out the physical acting of the other lady. I don't know her name, and I probably would mispronounce it.
That's actually gonna lead into my trivia. So shout out the wife.
Oh, there you go. But yeah, so then there was those problems with the cinematographer. They shot some more of the movie. And this is where the story gets a little bit muddied for me, exactly how it went down. But they ended up having another cinematographer brought in who then shot that whole like second part of the movie that kind of different that you mentioned. There was a different points where they were going to make this two separate movies, and it was a part 1 and part 2, and it underwent a lot of just troubled shooting and changes, and they would shoot stuff and then they would edit the script and they would mess around stuff. So it's kind of impressive that we ever got this movie at all. Let's throw it over to trivia.
Naked grandma! Naked, huh?
Since we both kind of teased it a little bit already.
Yeah. Okay, my first one is a very fun one, I think. Nothing particularly has to do with this movie, but it does have to do with, the Russians as a whole. So question 1, you can either give me the character name or the actor name from 2009 Star Trek. Who's the Russian guy from Star Trek?
Zachary Quinto. I don't know. Is there choices?
No, there's no choices.
I only know Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto. Who else is in that movie?
I think Simon Pegg may be in it. Carl Urban.
Carl Urban. Shout out the boys.
Big shout out the boys. But sadly, that is the incorrect answer. The actual Russian
Alexei.
guy
I bet his name's Alexei
from Star Trek. That's Stranger Things. Yeah, that's typecasting Russians out here. We're not about that. Yeah, the actor actually has sadly passed away. So shout out him. The character is Chekhov. Classic Star Trek character. Big guy.
Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, Anton Yelchin, I believe is how to say his name. Actually a pretty good actor, Rip. But yeah, Chekhov, underrated character, I think, in the Star Trek verse. So wanted to shout him out since we're shouting out the Russians with this episode. But yeah, that's my first question.
Amazing. New shots occur an average of every blank many seconds. Is it 33 seconds, 55 seconds, 88 seconds, or 111 seconds that it takes from one shot to start and then before we cut to the next one? What's the average amount of time throughout the entire 2-hour and 40-minute runtime?
Yeah, you know what they always say about the betting world. If you're not taking the over, you're a baby. So I'm taking whatever you said, 111. Is that correct? Whatever the highest one you said, D, I'm 100% taking because I think it's way up there.
Unfortunately, it was 88.
Wow.
So just a little bit lower. But that's crazy. Over a minute.
Ridiculous.
So if you really think about it, like when you're watching this movie, it's like a minute long takes, which that's tough to shoot. That's tough for actors. And it's also a little bit tough to watch sometimes.
It's not good for anybody, really, for being honest. But
artistic vision, maybe.
For a minute for each cut. come on, man. That's ridiculous. It really is. But yeah, crazy.
I think this is like the inverse of Requiem for a Dream, where I think that average maybe a cut every like 5 seconds.
5 minutes, yeah. Yeah, no, that is true. In comparison to like modern movies as well, I think that's especially ridiculous. Just
Yeah.
based off of the cuts there are.
As a
down.
society, we've become very, ingrained with the idea that instant information and in the fast-paced world is essential. And, I think we need to go back to our roots, Kody, and really slow down, take a breather, disconnect from the electronics, plug in your computer and watch some Stalker. That's what I always say.
You know what? There's probably some old people who clicked on this. They're like, "Oh, Stalker! I love the movie. I remember watching it as a kid." And they're probably like, "This Gen Z filth is is ruining Tarkovsky's greatest achievement." We might get some hate for this episode now that I think about it. But yeah, there's probably some boomers on here who be like, "This is the greatest movie of its generation."
This is the greatest movie of its generation. You got to do the accent, because I don't think any American kids were watching this in 1979. If you knew about the political state of the world, Kody, if you want to talk about something important,
history stuff over here. Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't around the Soviet Union in 1979, my guy. But anywho, let's move swiftly on to my second.
You've seen Stranger Things, you should know.
That's true, Lexi's a G. My second question, absolute barn burner. Pretty proud of it. Did some deep research here, and funny enough, most of these characters, they have nicknames that we call them. But my question is, what is the stalker's wife's name? Just looking for a woman's name here, basically. And my hint, there's no options, but I'm giving you a hint. It starts with an S.
It's like Lissa, right?
I said it starts with an S.
Oh. Sylvia. Good guess. According to IMDb, the character's name is Stalker's wife. So that is incorrect. so good guess. It could have been Sylvia, but unfortunately, it's Stalker's wife. Wow.
0 for 2 this week. Tough week for you on trivia.
Let's move on. Well, actually, let's throw it to a quick commercial break, and we'll see you shortly. And we're back with Who Can Act.
Wow.
Kody, who can act?
I actually didn't even look up the guy's name. Let me do that real quick. I mentioned it earlier. It is the writer. I think his performance is by far the best. His name is...
Also, IMDb says her name is Xena Stalkera.
Yeah, I don't know. I searched Stalker cast and on Google. It just said her character name's Stalker White.
His name is Anatoly
Solonitsyn. Anatoly Solonitsyn.
It's like an Italian accent.
I know. Spaghetti and the meatballs. Anatoly Solonitsyn. But he's pretty good, I think, actually. That monologue I mentioned earlier, I was kind of like, oh wow, that was some powerful stuff. Talking about, he's been writing his entire life, and sort of he's been, rejected by society a little bit. Sort of the lowest of lows, and like acting wise, I think especially that was a standout moment, because I mean, you had some of that stuff with the Stalker where he's breaking down and stuff, but like actual like believable stuff, I think came out of the writer. So shout out Antonoli. Might have to check out some of your other projects. Hopefully one of them's in English, but yeah, not too bad. And like early on in the movie as well, I thought I was gonna hate his character. I mean, when you have like the writer, you're like, oh, this guy's gonna, talk nonsense the entire time. He really had like some cool character depth, I thought. So yeah, shout out.
I'll generally say I think the main three are pretty good throughout the film. I think the first half sees one of those characters acting diminish a little bit, and I'll hit that. But I do think the three main, I mean, they are just, the movie kind of rides on them just talking the whole time and walking around. And, for what it's worth, they do a pretty good job.
Yeah, sure.
Let's go to Who Can Act.
That's my opinion!
Yeah, I got a couple people shout out. First off, I mean, the Stalker, I don't think is particularly good. Let's shout out him as well. Alexander, that's an easier name. Kaidanovsky. Alexander Kaidanovsky. I don't know what else he's in. Probably not too much. But as the titular character, I would say his performance does not forebode very well. Emotionally, I said this as well. He's kind of all over the place. And like at the end of the movie, I still kind of don't know who his character is, what he really wants, his true intentions. because I mean, obviously he's a big zone guy. He wants to be in the zone. We get that, but then he has his family on the outside. So what is his truly? I think it would have been interesting if they were like, hey, you're gonna do this in the room now, just to see like what would come out of that, because I think his intentions are all over the place, and if he is just there to help out people, I don't think that's that interesting, especially when he doesn't screen these people and he's just letting in terrorists. So I don't know. That doesn't have much to do with his performance, but I still didn't think he was great emotionally. And then the scientist as well. I mean, he low-key sucks in this movie. I thought it was cool, his character change from like part 1 to part 2. I really liked like the acting to start off part 2 for him. He's sort of revealing like his true intentions, but then he kind of just lost into it. And I thought performance-wise, he was like a little bit stronger than the Stalker.
I need to get my rucksack.
Yeah, I need to get my rucksack. But performance-wise, I thought he was okay. But I mean, there's only 3 actors, so I'm gonna call out 2 of them. So yeah.
I will say in part 1, and honestly, in like the first like 20 minutes of this film, I think the Stalker is really bad. I think like to start off the movie, it's just like I was like worried. I was like, oh my god, this acting is like bad. Because here's the spoiler alert. I also think his wife. I think her tantrum was.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah,
she's really bad.
It's really bad. So like to start off the movie, his acting and her acting, and it just like all wasn't great. I think he settles into the role a little bit better. I think the professor's fine, for most of the movie. It is interesting. I was looking, and both the professor and the writer, the actors that play them, appear in multiple other Tarkovsky films, whereas the Stalker did not really continue with him. But if you watch Solaris, Andrei Rublev, Mir, they're both in those as well. So that's cool.
That makes sense. Yeah, the Stalker, the actor was probably pretty mad. We didn't get asked. That is kind of Nolanism too, to use the same actors. So that's funny.
It seems the Stalker went and directed some movies of his own a little bit later. So maybe he's a better director.
Good for him. Yeah, probably than Tarkovsky off this. But yeah, I think if there were more actors in this movie, there'd be probably a couple more people to shout out. But sad there's only like 5.
Small cast.
Yeah.
What about the guy who works at like the bar or whatever?
I think he's pretty good. What does he have? 2 lines? Something about the dog and something about you want to drink or something.
What's up with the dog, dude?
I don't understand that at all. It's got to be somebody's like childhood pet. I thought it was in the vision though, and then he's like there at the end.
The dog, the dog.
So maybe that was like, maybe he did go into the thing, and they're like, "Oh, what's your deepest wish?" And he's like, "Oh, I want my dog back." He was having visions of it the entire time. So maybe that's what it was. Or maybe this dog just tagged along and has been stuck in the zone. I don't really know. It could easily be that as well.
All right, let's move on to the recast.
You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired.
Kody, I'm curious to kind of see where you went with this.
Yeah, so I think I went with I don't know if you went in the same direction, but I'm bringing this movie into modern days basically, and I'm recasting the trio. So I went with a all guys trio and all girls trio of modern actors. So basically, I just want to remake this movie. So I mean, I don't really want to watch some Russian guys from the 70s in these roles instead. So my first one, and then I'll bounce over to you. I'll start with the guys. Oscar Isaac, of course. This is Annihilation, basically ripping off this movie. So you got to have him in it. Secondly, for the professor, I wanted somebody a little bit older. So I went George Clooney. I feel like he's not in much these days. Good actor, Ocean's 11. Get him more of a leading role here. And then lastly, I went Anthony Mackie as he's got to be the writer, because Oscar Isaac's got to be just this psychopath stalker. But Anthony Mackie, much different from his MCU character, not as many quips. He's going to give it a performance of a lifetime here, I think, and sort of go back to his old, more dramatic days. I think he is a better dramatic actor, if I'm being honest. But that's my trio. What do you think about it?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I did do something very similar. I just did men, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Wow. See how it is.
I took mine not present day because one of these actors is dead now. I guess you could say maybe if they were still alive, they'd be a great cast. But maybe let's make this movie like late 90s, early 2000s. Is kind of what I was thinking. So
you gonna say Heath Ledger?
No. I like Heath Ledger. I think you'd be too young to do it at this time. So for the Stalker, I'm going Woody Harrelson.
Okay, I like that.
I think physically there's some similarities there. I mean, Woody Harrelson with the shaved head, he'd be kind of a crazy guy. You know, a little rough around the edges. And then for the writer, I'm going to take the person who has unfortunately passed away, Philip Seymour Hoffman, as the writer.
That's a great pick as well.
Yeah, I mean, these were really the two inspired ones. I struggle a little bit more with the professor, but I went an interesting direction. But yeah, I think Philip Seymour Hoffman, obviously great as a supporting character. I think he's played writers many times. I mean, famously Truman Capote. Yeah, like I think he can deliver the real like poetic, verbose dialogue that the writer has to do in this version of the movie. And then I decided the professor needs to have a little bit of a comedic, you know, snap to him, a little something. But also I think this person can be serious as well. And I'm gonna go Eddie Murphy.
Oh wow.
What do you think about that? Yeah. It's a little out there.
Me.
We'd have to reel him in a little bit at times. But I want to see Eddie Murphy throwing the bomb, breaking it apart, fighting with Woody Harrelson. That's the thing that like this movie like I know it's not supposed to be a comedy, but like there's no moment of like anything even fun or like enjoyable.
Yeah.
Besides maybe the mutant girl pushing the X-Men girl. So like I want some fun at it. And I think you put these three together, like one of the most serious actors of all time in Philip Seymour Hoffman, and you throw in Woody Harrelson who kind of does a little bit of both, and then Eddie Murphy. I mean, I don't know. I like it.
Yeah, I'm here for it. I think I've pitched Eddie Murphy in more serious roles in the past on the show, so I can't dig you too hard. And Philip Seymour Hoffman, I think that's bang on though. I think that's one of the best castings we've ever had, if I'm being honest.
Thank you.
So shout out there. But yeah, throw Eddie in, give him a chance. Why not? I mean, this movie can't be any worse than this movie we got, so might as well. I'll throw it over my trio of women. Obviously, I'm going to start off with Zazie Beetz, who's my new Dave Bautista. She's got to be in this. I think she's going to be the writer. Give her the best story. Give her the best writing.
I can see her as the stalker, but I like it.
Yeah, I'm going instead for the stalker with Emily Blunt. I think we shave her head, if I'm being honest. Natalie Portman would be for Vendetta style, but I want just an unfiltered performance from Emily Blunt. Just I don't think we've really seen that too much from her as well. So I think it'd be a fun role for her, kind of just going to a crazy direction. And then lastly, for the professor, the smarts of the group, I'm going Gemma Chan, who I think I shouted out, if not last episode, the one before. Get Gemma Chan in more roles. I think she's a very good actress.
Hey, Eternals 2. It's been announced. Yeah.
Let's go.
Well, not like there was an art. I saw like a headline. Yeah, it's happening.
Yeah. I mean, deservedly so. Harry Styles in the post-credit scene. What else could you ask for? I like Eternals. They better bring Icarus back somehow. I think this trio is a little bit stronger than my guy trio. Obviously, Zazie Beetz carrying it, and a crazy Emily Blunt. So can't really beat that.
I think your female casting is even stronger than your male casting. So shout out to you, Kody.
I agree.
Let's move on to our rating of this movie.
You're gonna look at me and you're gonna tell me that I'm wrong? Am I wrong?
I've bagged on this, but I do think there's some good stuff here at the end of the day. Like it's one of those movies that's like you have to rate it a little bit higher just because it is significant. It does look good. It's like, I mean, it looks beautiful. There's a ton of stuff in this that like you could study and has been emulated and seen time and time again. And even in this conversation, I've come to enjoy this movie more. The things you've brought up, the things I've brought up, I guess you don't think so.
I disagree.
I think you've discovered some things that you like a little bit better, at the very least, I would hope. But I'm gonna slot this movie in at a 56.
A 56 out of 69?
Yeah, 4 stars.
Oh my god.
And hey, if we re-edit it, it's probably 5 stars.
Yeah, if we read it, sure. Well, that's the big twist ending here. You're just copying this movie. Oh my! I mean, that's basically top tier for you. You're ready.
It's like top 15 at this point. We've done too many. Currently, I have it. It's 17 right now. So
yeah, what's a movie that's like around that range for you? 55.
So it's below Dazed and Confused, but I put it above Palm Springs, Gone Girl, Spider-Man: No Way Home, Holes.
Interesting. No, good placement. Coming in, I didn't even write down a number because I didn't know where the hell I wanted to put this thing.
Movies
I
like
believe
this
I,
are so hard to rate, though.
yeah, I mean, what I have Chicken Little at, like 10? I don't know. I gave it 5 for what? Fish Out of Water and 5 for the music, I believe. That is exactly what I did.
I'm just gonna divvy out some points here. Out of 69, obviously. I'm gonna give it five ratings for the music, and then I'm gonna add another 5 ratings for Fish Out of Water. So yeah, my rating is 10 out of 69. I don't know.
So
what
it doesn't get
percentage that-
anything for the titular character of Chicken Little.
No, Chicken Little. He's mixed in with both that music and Fish Out of Water, so that's ingrained at those points. Yeah, 10 out of 69. My God, I don't think I'll ever watch this movie again. If I do, I'll probably enjoy it a little bit more.
Yeah, for this movie, I'll give it 10 for the ending. Anything else redeeming? I like the writer. I'll give another 10 for the writer and his speech. No Russian guy from Star Trek, so that's a no. I think I'm gonna go with a clean 25 here, just because it is shot well. So 25 out of 69. If I ever see a clip of this movie again, I'll probably chuck my phone.
This is worse than The Wrong Missy to you?
100%. I would watch The Wrong Missy in a fucking instant over this movie. Good flick. Don't check it out, but 25 out of 69. That's my rating.
Even better than The Last Jedi. Tough.
Yeah, I would watch Last Jedi over this movie as well, which is tough to say, but yeah, no doubt.
Well, as always, it's been fun to talk about a movie with you, Kody. Let's talk about another one as we go to our next category. We have a Podgorithm.
What's this category? Season 3.
The movie that has been drawn is Pirates of the Caribbean.
Wow. You want to start us off?
Not particularly, no.
All right, I'll start us off. Here we go. Pirates of the Caribbean, interesting franchise. I think the first one is pretty good. I haven't seen the second or third one in a very long time, and I think they made 4 and 5, which I've not seen. So tough there. But I mean, this is Johnny Depp's most iconic role. Actually, pretty good performance in that first one. His introduction as Captain Jack Sparrow, I think, is very good. And Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom are actually interesting in the first one as well. There's a cool villain, actually pretty good CGI as well for the time. So, and it's kind of cool. It's like based off just a ride at Disney World, which, I mean, you pick any other ride, it's probably gonna be garbage, but actually kind of a fun story. And yeah, the first one's super rewatchable, I think. So shout out Captain Jack. Decent flick first one. I'd check it out.
Other great movies based on Disney rides: Tower of Terror, Jungle Cruise with Rock and Emily Blunt.
Yeah.
This movie does, good CGI. These movies have grossed a lot of money. Over billions of dollars, this franchise. Another shout out to our boy Connor Van Overberg, also loves the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. A lot of people say Johnny Depp's casting as Jack Sparrow is one of those perfectly cast roles. And maybe a little teaser, we'll be doing something with perfectly cast roles in the coming weeks. So that's all I have to say.
Wink, wink.
Let's move on to our final category, recommendations.
I drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
Kody, what have you been into? What do you have to recommend to the people other than, of course, check out Stalker on HBO Max?
Of course, yeah, classic out there. But yeah, I'm lacking on Rex this week. I'm not gonna lie. We haven't.
It's been a week and a half since we recorded, Kody. You haven't seen anything. Have you seen Thor yet?
I have not seen Thor. That was what I was gonna say. So my recommendations this week: haven't seen Thor. Haven't seen the Ms. Marvel finale. Haven't seen the.
Have you had it spoiled for you at least?
No.
Don't. Wow, I can't even talk about it. Oh my God.
I've been busy. Yeah, I haven't been on Twitter too much. So, actually, I don't even know if I mentioned this, but I got spoiler things spoiled for me on Twitter basically. So I saw something where it was like, oh, Steve makes it through the season, and then I saw something else where it was like, oh, Eddie dies. So fuck Twitter. But yeah, Thor. I mean, I saw something about Hercules is in it, but I mean, fucking Russell Crowe's what's his face. So I feel like that's not a surprise at all. Also heard Thor. Yeah, Zeus, whatever. Fucking Greek mythology, who cares? But I also heard Thor's okay. Some mixed emotions on it. So I'm interested to see it, and I'm actually very interested to check out Ms. Marvel. I kind of forgot about that. I might watch that tonight.
there's something that we need to talk about with that. So when you get there, we'll discuss it next week, I guess. It's a little teaser for that. We'll talk Miss Marvel.
But yeah, sounds good. My one rec is Seinfeld. I think it's a great show. I'm going through season 1 right now, which
You recommended this on a recommendations podcast.
I know, and that's kind of why I want to talk about it, because the first season is it's not very good. Going back and rewatching it, it's a lot of the format of the show in season 1 is very different from the format from all the other seasons. It's a lot more sort of like what you would expect from it. I think it's very talky. It's very, just Elaine and Jerry and George just talking about stupid shit, which can be a little bit boring at times when that is the entire show. And Kramer's kind of like this weirdo. In the pilot episode, it's stated that Kramer hasn't left the building in 30 years. And Elaine's not even in the pilot. So I think they realized they had something interesting with these characters, but they needed to tweak it a lot. And also, like, Kramer in the first season is just like this weirdo that they don't even like hanging out with. But like in season 2, they're all best friends, obviously. So yeah, I think they just continuously and also there's an episode where like Jerry and Elaine, they officially like get together, and then the next episode is just forgotten about and they're just friends again. Like they have this big thing about how Elaine can't go back to being friends, and Jerry has to choose, to be together or not to be friends at all, and he chooses to get together with her. And then the next episode, they're in Florida with Jerry's parents, and they're like, "Oh, we're not sleeping in the same room. We can only be friends." So a lot of continuity stuff. This is basically like the X-Men of TV. Every episode is just wiped out. Nobody gives a shit about continuity. Anywho, season 1, not the best Seinfeld, but I'm slowly working my way into 2 and 3, which is much better. So shout out that great show. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. But I'll throw it over to you. I'm sure you have a lot of recs, as we have been off this pod for a decent amount of time, but
movie watching slowed down for sure. Started a new job up here in Chicago, been busy, but I have been able to watch a few things. Did see Thor. We'll talk about that more once you get to see it. Did finish Miss Marvel. Again, we'll talk about some stuff there.
I'll check those out this week.
Very similar endings between this movie and Miss Marvel, to be entirely honest. We'll leave it at that. And
okay, cool. Who's a fucking mutant? The kid, what's his name? Slim Shady.
It's his daughter from the Zone, Stalker. It's Monkey. Yeah. Monkey shows up in Miss Marvel is what I'm trying to tell you.
No, what's the kid? What's the white kid's name from Miss Marvel?
Bruno.
Bruno, there it is.
Or
Bruno's
Brian,
got powers. I'm calling it.
Depending on who you ask.
Brian.
I rewatched Everything Everywhere All at Once. Great movie. Nice. Classic. 2022 classic. I watched The Graduate for the first time. That was pretty good. Dustin Hoffman, shout out. Semi-pro. Don't like that movie very much, to be entirely honest.
Yeah, the movie's not that good.
I wrote in my Letterboxd review that Adam McKay watched this movie, and that's the reason he wouldn't let Will Ferrell be in Winning Time. And personally, I think that's a pretty good joke. So, Minions, we Grew Nation, Gentle Minions, Rise Up. My heroes, the Yellow Boys, didn't have a great movie, to be entirely honest. Sorry. But Steve Carell, he's fun as young Gru. Guess he made $12 million to do that, so good for him. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. That's a fun movie. I personally didn't quite like fully live up to the hype, but it's still pretty solid. Apparently it's animated. I disagree. Like, it is stop motion animation, but it's not animated. But apparently it's going to be eligible for the animated Oscar, which it's because it is stop motion, but it's like in the real world with like people, and it's shot on like it's not the same thing.
Also, it won't win, so who cares? But
it might, though, low key.
I saw the trailer for that movie. It looks fucking terrible, but
it's like being lauded. Like, people adore this movie.
Yeah, I don't think it'll win. Disney will pop something out and it'll be the biggest of all time.
I did almost cry. I'll say that.
Almost.
And the chick from 60 Minutes is in it, so shout out to her. I don't know her name though, but she's a hell of a journalist. And 60 Minutes, dude.
Yeah, I like that show.
You're not a fan? Marcel loves it. That's kind of a major.
What's her name? I can't remember.
We need to put some respect on her name. So hold up.
Katie Kirk? No, that's not it.
No. Leslie Stahl. Leslie
Stahl.
Iconic. Unless
Good
she's ever like said anything or done anything bad, then I don't back her.
Then we don't like her. Yeah.
Otherwise, Leslie Stahl, she's great. And then The Breakfast Club, which I'm gonna be honest, it's not that great.
I haven't seen it.
That's my hot take. I've seen it before, but I disliked it a lot more. You know, there's some things that don't hold up as well, but I don't even think those are the reasons I don't like the movie. I just think it's like a bunch of insufferable people. Yeah.
Fair enough. I found out through TikTok actually that movie takes place all in one day, which I didn't know because I haven't seen it. So that's cool.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of like it also just takes place in a high school. So there you go, Kody.
That's crazy.
They're in
John,
detention.
He doesn't do high school movies, does he?
You don't know anything about this? Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I knew it was in high school.
It's in a high school and they're in detention.
Yes, I know what it's
day.
about. I just haven't seen it. I didn't know it took place in a day. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's them in detention in one day.
That's it. That's the entire. It sounds pretty boring. I don't know.
I mean, they hijinks ensue.
They dance around and stuff. I've seen that. But...
Yeah, they engage in some illicit activities and such.
Maybe I should check out them. Sounds interesting.
It's on Hulu. There you go. All right. We'll have another episode next week. I don't know what day. My schedule is gonna be crazy. Peace.
Stay gapping.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.